Have you guys noticed that when an individual, right, is aged in the Word of God, one of the first things that happens to a lot of these men and women is they get sick. Have you noticed that? Have you guys noticed that? I've certainly noticed it. In fact, I've met some pretty unique individuals who really fought the good fight. In fact, it wouldn't even be a fight if they were healthy all the way through. But some of them get really sick. And I've also noticed a lot of believers, they'll say, well, that person got sick because of so-and-so, or they must have been doing something wrong, right? I hope you don't believe that. Because here we go. This portion deals with your understanding. I want you all to agree or disagree. Disagreement, 0. Agree, 1. Type a 1 if you agree, 0 if you disagree. You ready? Number 1, God does not need us. He loves us. Would you all agree with that? He doesn't need us. He loves us. He can do everything himself. He doesn't need, he certainly does not need me. He can do it himself. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need any of us. We're part of his creation. We're not really going to influence his existence any, enhance it or otherwise. So we really can't do anything for him. He didn't need us. We need him. So you all agree with that? Good. Would you also agree that when it comes to preachers and ministers that he doesn't need any of them either? He can depart the word of God himself just as sure as your body functions all by itself. Your kidneys are doing what they're supposed to do. Your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. Your heart's doing what it's supposed to do. You didn't teach it those things. But it's running autonomously without your help. Wouldn't you agree that he can depart the word to us? He could have had us just be adults. No childhood, no anything. He didn't need a minister either. He can depart what he needs to depart to anybody in his own fashion, in his own way. That being the case, right? And you may want to understand some things. Now, a lot of people look around this world and they like to point fingers and say, well, this person lost all they had because of so-and-so, and this person did this because of they're doing this and all that. You know, they come up with reasons that things happen. We want to find a reason for everything. The problem with that is this. That's not seeing our Father with sober eyes. When a minister, when all sorts of things begin to happen to God's ministers, right? It's just like the reason we have children. It's the same thing. You see, without a child, you would not be who you are. Without children, we would not be who we are. Without the sick, you would not cultivate compassion. You wouldn't work in the ways of love or anything else. So let me give you a different perspective. When people are sick, when things go wrong, it's so that you can exercise who you are, not turn your back, not come up with 1,000 reasons why you can't do anything, but so those with love in them may exercise that love. You see, when one of God's ministers is sick or something happens, those who really believe in the Lord respond. They respond with everything they are. That's an opportunity, not for the minister, not for the one who is sick, but for the ones who are not sick. God always needs, or he didn't need, but he uses a vessel that a lot of people may know, that somebody can see. He does this with children quite a bit. Sometimes children go through these strange things when they're young. They have trouble in school, this, that, and the other. Well, that brings out the compassion in another person. Because if you haven't noticed, without the sick, without the children with problems, there'd be hardly any compassion left in this world, and men would have destroyed one another a long time ago. Because men are largely creatures of war, though it's unnatural to them. That's what they do. But these acts of compassion, they stop the entire globe, don't they? They do. They stop everything. And when love pours out, healings always occur. When you have a minister who is aged, he's also learned. He's also been faithful. And when they're learned and faithful, the Lord will often use them as a vessel of usage for others. Because the minister is so faithful, that minister is not going to just drop his faith and walk off the job. No. I've noticed that he takes those who have devoted their lives to him. He'll often use them as a vessel. And when they're in a problem or sickened or something like that, it gives everybody else an opportunity. Now, I've noticed something else in this pattern. I've noticed it in the Word too. When this happens, you better be guaranteed. You better understand that when this takes place, it's not because the minister needs some type of salvation. No, it's because the people under that minister, they need that act of love for an extra measure of grace and mercy because of what they're about to face. I've seen this too much. I've seen it over and over and over again in my life. In every single case, when somebody is used as a vessel, and then others do not respond, they end up being taken, going through some things they wouldn't choose to go through because of the heaviness that comes. And so the Lord operates in the way he established in us. That is a way of love. Why would a God of love operate any other way? Why didn't he have our children just come out full adults? I'll tell you why. Because we would never grow up. That's why. A young child who cannot take care of themselves, it forces us to compassionately take care of them. So guess what we begin to do? We begin to experience responsibility, hardship, sacrifice, all the things necessary to actually see through the eyes of love. So it's not at all what most people think, because is God punishing anybody right now? Yes or no? Where in the Bible does it say that the Lord will punish anybody right now? Does it? No. You'll not read that in the Bible. What you will read is that he will correct his own children. That's chasten his own children. See, if you're not his child, you will not receive correction. Because when he gives correction, he does so as a father. Now, in the end, you have judgment, which is the punishment. The punishment is coming. No one has escaped the punishment. But as a child, you're being raised. All this time, you're being raised. Punishment has been reserved. Now, men can live under a curse, but that curse does not apply to those who live their lives washed by the blood. The earth may be cursed, but you're not cursed. Men of the earth may be cursed, but you're children of the kingdom, and you are not cursed. So you're walking this earth, and you're not even cursed. And there is no punishment. Punishment has been reserved. And it will come out at a specific time. That's why you see sometimes it looks like evil prospers, but it doesn't. Crime is not prospering. Evil deeds are not prospering. All these folks who get away with things, they haven't gotten away with anything. A specific time just has not come yet. But for us, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to exercise that seed of love within you. That's what that is. You hear of now there are folks out there, let me tell you now, because Satan is allowed to do this. He is allowed to manipulate people. In other words, now follow me closely. Satan is allowed to be in the midst of your life to counterfeit a sickness, to counterfeit that he or she needs help. Satan is allowed to do this. Satan will always be Satan. A demon will always be a demon. And they do exactly what demons and Satan does. If you fall for them, you have fallen for them for one cause and one cause alone. Because you walked outside of obedience. They are a fence. They are the chastisement outside of obedience. They're like a thorn bush, right? If the Lord told you to stay on the sidewalk, but you get the crafty idea that you're going to take a stroll off that sidewalk, you're going to step right into the thorns. That's what Satan is for. Satan operates outside of obedience, never inside of obedience. Satan is not permitted inside of obedience. Demons are not permitted inside of obedience. They're never permitted inside of obedience. Not ever. They can never do that. So if you walk within obedience, what have you done? What did Jesus say you did? To walk in obedience is a walk in Christ, is it not? For him to walk in you. And if that happens, because he overcame the world, so will you overcome the world. Because if he walks in you as an overcomer of the world, then you have overcome the world as he walks in you. Do you all see how that works? That's walking in obedience. See how simple that is? That's very simple. Now, obedience is not something, you're not whipped into obeying the Lord. The Lord is not going to whip you into obeying him. Nope, it doesn't work like that. That comes from a cruel taskmaster, not our Father. Our Father will simply say, come follow me. Give it a try. If you fall, he says, you can do it. He is that hope that we have inside of us sometimes. When we've given up hope on everything, and then out of the blue, a small hope comes. A small fractal of light comes. That's our Father saying, I'm still here. Right? How many situations have you truly fallen in? You just fell in a situation. No doubt disobedient, but it felt like everything was over. And you know now that it was not over. How many times have you fallen and you said to yourself, it's over, but it wasn't? How many times in your youth did you say, well, it's over, but it wasn't? How many times did you call yourself a failure, but the Lord never called you a failure? In fact, if he would have called you a failure, you would not know him right now today. The only reason you follow him right now today is because the Father keeps assisting you, because you keep desiring to follow him. The Father will assist that desire within you to follow Christ. That small desire that you have, that's what Satan is afraid of. He's not afraid of the big stuff. He's afraid of that small desire you have. See, some of you may sit in sin right now, but you have a desire not to do that sin. And I'm telling you now, Satan is afraid of that because he'll lose you. Satan doesn't want to lose any of his trash, but you're not his trash. He spent his lifetime, I guess you could say. He's been here for only the Lord knows how long he's been here. But can you imagine a being who knows just about everything, but it can't even conquer you. And why is that? Because you have a desire in you, a hope, a longing within you, and it's not for him. In fact, you've proven the opposite while you've been alive. You can't stand to see all the murder on television, and although sometimes we act rowdy, when it comes to people dying and everything else, you do not desire that. You may be angry. You may have had thoughts, I wish somebody would strangle that person. You may have thought even worse. But when you saw it, when you knew it was happening, what did you do? Deep down inside, you said, why, Lord? Why must we destroy one another? In other words, the Lord knows the difference between our foolish mouths, our foolish flesh desires, and what we truly desire on the inside. He's made a distinction between the two by way of the blood of the Lamb, which is given to redeem your soul, not your flesh. But he is assisting you into dying to your flesh. You know what it is to die to your flesh daily? Do you guys know what that is? Dying to your flesh daily? Do you know what that is? Anybody know what that is? Let me give you an idea. To die to your flesh daily, right, means, first of all, you were alive to your flesh or for your flesh. Now, hear me out. To be alive for your flesh means you were living to satisfy cravings. You were living to satisfy these temporal desires that you have in the world. All that has been changed in you, hasn't it? Think really hard. Now, just stop where you are and think really hard. You used to get up and get excited about going out here and going out there, to meet some people, to have a drink here, to go to a party here. Didn't you? And throughout all these years, guess what happened? It's not like you intentionally tried it. You didn't force this upon yourself. This is a change that took place in you, and people normally don't really realize it until it's mentioned. But you had a desire. You would get happy to wake up, to go shop, to go do certain things, but something happened, and it began to change. You're not waking up for those reasons anymore. You're not living your life to go to a party anymore. Nope, you have a brand new set of desires. Most people don't realize this. But if you think really hard, you begin to see how many things within you have changed. You did not make that change within yourself. Your Lord did. He did that. That's his fingerprint in your life. That's him. That's all him. That's none of us, but all him. In fact, you have a brand new set of desires you may not have recognized you had. That longing that you have within you for the Lord, yet you still have things in your life that you still contend with, still do from time to time. You're overcoming them because you don't do them as often. And every time you do them, you have a greater desire for the Lord to defeat them. How many of you have sat back and just wanted sin defeated in your life, almost to the point of tears? When you messed up yet again, you wanted that gone out of your life. That does not come from a condemned person. That comes from a person who has grace running all over them because of the blood of the Lamb. That comes from one of the Lord's redeemed. That's a kingdom mindset. A kingdom mindset is to realize what you're not a part of anymore and to long for what you are part of. That's a manifest change within you that is only beginning. It's only beginning. Because with recognition, you're beginning to see his handprint, his change within you, something you didn't do, something you didn't even really think about. Yet the more you think about it, the more ways you're going to see have truly changed. You lost your appetite for certain things. You didn't do that. No. You know what that's called? See, let me tell you what's happening in the body of Christ. A lot of people say, well, if you still have faults, you just messed up, and that's wrong. That's wrong. Most people, I don't know, we're going to do some studies that a lot of people don't do. Let me just tell you the facts here, because the Lord said what he said, and he meant every word he said. And because you have that desire, and in the depth of your heart, a great revealing is taking place as to what you really want, something man cannot see, lest God give him eyes for it. That's why most will still criticize you. But you won't be criticized here. The Lord is working in this place. I'm so thankful for that. He is really working. And the Lord is doing a great work in you. A work that you didn't even recognize in the beginning. When you have a brand new set of desires, how many of you know what that comes from? What does it come from? It comes from one thing and one thing only. What does it come from? Is it somehow your flesh changed? No. Is it somehow your desires just changed by themselves? Nope, it's not just that. So what happened? You ready? It's a born-again spirit. That's what that is. That born-again spirit that you have, that's what you are now. That sin you used to walk in, that's not you anymore. That's why you're so detached from it. That's why you're running away from it. That's why you're begging the Lord to take the rest of it away, because of that born-again spirit. Now, when you have a born-again spirit, Jesus spoke further about that, so did the apostles. It's something that you learn to walk in. You don't immediately perfect it, because it has to be fed and it will grow. And your adversary seeks to feed your flesh, get you pumped up in earthly things. The Lord increases that desire of that born-again spirit for righteous things only. Not for the show of righteous things, but for righteous things. For what Jesus lived for and sits at the right hand of the living God for. For the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is for the salvation of the soul of your neighbor. You begin to live for that. You begin to want that so badly. All too often, you don't have full instruction on how to do it, but that becomes your number one desire. And if I were to count each and every one of you, how many times I've heard you say, "Oh, I wish they would just hear the Lord." That's a desire of you wanting somebody else to have salvation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is true love. That is agape love. That is untainted love. Because that is redemption. That is a person having life. You don't desire to see them die. You want to see them live. The same thing the Father said, the same thing Jesus said. Live. Those things are confirmation of that born-again spirit. But you're by no means done. There's still more things to come. And there is a power also to come. The desire you can recognize, your hunger and thirst for righteousness, you can recognize all of these are traits of a born-again spirit. But there's more. Now, the opposite side of that is what? What would Satan naturally want to do? To make you renounce that born-again spirit. To make you renounce those things of the Lord. And how would he do that? By having you step out of love. You may not know this, but love itself had a big impact in your life. Even though you guys had a loss of love when you were young, when you were teenagers, all of us have horror stories about being broken. All of us do. All of us do. Some of us are even broken now. But we have born-again spirits that long for the living God. We long for his word to be fully manifest, don't we? That's why you were born to be drawn to things in Revelation. That's why you don't believe like the average person. See, Revelation is the fulfillment of all things, and you long for the fulfillment of all things. And all this time specifically, right at 2013 to the present day. It's almost like the expectation meter went straight down to zero, didn't it? Before 2013, people were so hyper with anticipation, so filled with anticipation. And then that meter went down to zero, and it was quite depressing for a lot of people, wasn't it? It was a collective lesson given to all, a further filtering that had to happen to show you something, one of the strongest weapons against you and those who think like you. See, if you ever believe that a prophetic time is coming at a certain moment, you can deny it with your mouth all day. But in your heart of hearts, you want it to kind of be true, because that means you'd be finished. But because it was not finished, but rather it was, that time was a scoffing time. Your expectation meter went down, and you went almost into depression. You may not have told a soul, but it took its toll on you. And now, instead of getting excited about some external prophecy, you become a bit more grounded, a bit more in the Word about what you trust, so that you're not tossed by every wave that comes, every idea, right? Every prophecy. You're not moved that way anymore. Now you're a partaker of something else, because if all of you just think very carefully, you used to get excited, but there's a bit of trepidation now. It's a bit of caution. It's a great bit of caution. There's a bit of backing off, saying, well, we have to look at this serious, because these things are not funny. These things are not, you can almost anticipate something. You don't know what it is, but you're very cautious about it, because you know whatever it is, it's serious. You're starting to understand the cost of prophecy. That's why in the book of Revelation, John on the Isle of Patmos was told, eat this book. And when he ate the book, it was sweet in his mouth, but it was bitter in his belly. The bitterness of prophecy is the realization of prophecy. It's only bitter when you start seeing signs of the prophecy. When you start seeing that, yes, the people, they can do this. When you saw the riots in the streets, it caused you bitterness. Because you said, my goodness, if they're doing this on a small scale, how much more will it be during the times the Lord was talking about? If they can't listen to reason on this small scale, with a few people murdered, what will they do with an entire countryside destroyed? What will they do then? You've seen so many situations. You haven't put them all together yet, but you've been given an example of how people will really respond. Not in some glamorous way, but in utter confusion, anger, and hatred, ready to kill each other at a moment's notice. That is bitterness. Bitterness to know that the others will not listen to you. They won't hear a word you have to say. That's why in Revelation again it says, in your patience possess ye your souls. That's why Jesus said, work while it's day, because when the night comes, no man can work. And if we can't work, we're not spreading the gospel. And when you're not spreading the gospel, yet you're still here on this earth and the harvest is taking place, then guess what? You know what that means? You've got to hunker down. That will be the time when you really hunker down. And you really have to face a specific time with you and the Lord and the world, when there is no more gospel. When you hold on to what you have, that's going to be the marathon time. That's going to be the last lap in this run. The hardest lap in the run is at the very end, when you're holding on. And the more truth, the more for lack of better terms, training we have in walking in truth with the Lord in this way, a reevaluation of how we think, how we interact and what we're doing, a deeper understanding in the Lord, a deeper understanding of the elements in this world, especially the spiritual realm, and how it will pour into this realm, how it's doing so already. There's a prophecy on the way right now that I haven't heard a soul say anything about. Of course, I don't listen to a lot of folks. I tell you that. Actually, I don't really listen to anybody, but there's something going on right now that was prophesied and it's already begun. It's happening right now. It's in Revelation. We're not talking about the 7 churches either. We're talking about a major happening is happening right now. The process has already begun. And I've been following this process to somewhat validate it, and it's already begun. And I know that things will start taking a breakneck pace toward the end. See, the Lord tells us the times will escalate. He didn't use that term escalate, but the times will escalate. That was used, that language of escalation, that word that I won't mention now, but it was used by all the prophets and the apostles. It was used by Christ too, which means things will happen one after the other till they become very confusing and seemingly happening all at one time. Time will be condensed. You know what that means? That means everything that was going to take place over a duration of time is going to be condensed into a very short time. And during that time, we're told to possess our souls. There's a sober way to really view Revelation. Not in a scared way. Not in a chicken way. In a very sober way. Revelation is a note. A very good one. And it will bless your life here shortly. It will. How you see it now is not how you're going to see it in the future. It just won't be. You'll see in the future a very different way, and I mean the near future. It'll be the greatest promise you ever had. It will be the hope that could put a smile on your face in the middle of carnage. It's a promise. It's a big promise that the Lord will do exactly what he said he would do. Knowing Revelation allows you to see the timing, the speed of things. I know that most people try to forecast and be the expert in Revelation. No, that's not the point. The Lord was specific when he said, simply just the one who reads and keeps the words of this prophecy. It never once said explain it. He just said read it and keep it to yourselves. Isn't that something? That person will be blessed. If you read it and keep it, it's going to be a blessing to your life because you'll be armed with something that very few people have. Listen to me close. If I were to read Revelation and come up with a theory about how the end would unfold, I could cheat myself, lie to myself, do anything. The Lord already said man will deceive himself thinking that the end will come in one way when it's going to come in a different way. So I read Revelation and just keep it. Because I know that the Lord's going to be right. He is the one that will reveal it, and it shall be revealed as it unfolds. I'm not trying to forecast it. I'm not trying to be the authority on it. But I want to retain it so that I know it. That when the time comes, the Lord will give me revelation about revelation. A total revealing. Remember, the Lord he will do what? He'll remind you of his teachings. He'll remind you of what he said. He'll bring to your remembrance scriptures and what he said. It's my task to read it and to keep it. That requires a bit of study to keep it, to go over it. I don't just read it once. I don't read it twice. I read it multiple times. I go through the Bible often like that, the same things over and over. Because I want to keep what the Lord gave me. I've learned in my life that things are often never like we thought they would be. But if one could keep what the Lord gives them, and when the time comes, it would be fully revealed. And you would know, and that would be a great blessing to your life, to know that timing. Mm-hmm. When we keep it, the words of the prophecy, it'll become a blessing, just like Jesus said it would become. And the time, which was written in the book of Revelation, it said the time is at hand. Well, I'll tell you now, there's a different time at hand too. We're further along than what we ever thought. And we will be examining quite a few of those things. You might be surprised as to where we really are. Oh boy, it's that time, guys. It's that time. I gotta go. Really? I haven't even really got started yet. What's going on here anyway? So, guys, you understand the where I'm going with this, right? I hope you guys understand. It takes some labor of love on my part. I enjoy doing what I do. It's opposed, yes, but we can work through that. Sometimes things don't always work right. We're going to work through that. And this virus will, as soon as this thing goes away, we can escalate. The Lord will, He has us at a brand new level. It'll be a blessing. It'll be a blessing. I'll be writing letters about it, my thoughts on certain things too, because right now security is one of them, especially when people are gathered together. Security is a big issue of mine, infiltration. There are certain things you're going to have to expect and deal with. There are certain things you're going to have to deal with all the time. Rumor mills, so on and so forth, but security is the biggest issue. It is a big issue. And because we operate out of love, you'll have a lot of testers that come about that will test to see if we work out of love or not. That takes collective prayer, right? So that you can watch areas I can't see and I can watch areas you can't see as we continue to build this place. Because I tell you what's amazing. Here's what's amazing, guys. I just stopped doing it. I was going to tally up some of the totals we had all throughout the year. I just stopped doing this. I'm not counting this stuff. It was blowing me away. It was causing me to get emotional. For example, let me give you guys an example. Now, we haven't had altar calls here, right? We haven't had altar calls. But do you know how many people gave their lives to Christ? How many actually wrote in and said they had given their lives to Christ? And the teenagers who are listening to these broadcasts, how many? I know for a fact it was over 5,000 teenagers this year. Well over 5,000. I already know it was over 5,000. We've had conversions from people who were in the Middle East right now that converted to Christianity. And when I went to go trace back some of how we're being reached, I do the sound, right? I talk here. Flash records it, sticks it on SoundCloud. From SoundCloud, people download it and replicate it, making videos and stuff like that. Then it goes out from there. Then it still goes to other people from there. So it's like replicating, and it gets out all the way to the Middle East in a place where it shouldn't be. And then you get people converting from Muslim to Christian. And then the word gets all the way back here through the grapevine, right? Because in truth, they don't know where the site is. These folks have no idea where the site is. I don't mention the site. Have you noticed when I'm talking, I don't mention the site. So if somebody could say whatever they wanted to say, I don't mention the site. Have you guys noticed? I don't mention the site. I don't mention any of those things, right? It is amazing at what's happening. It's amazing at what's happening. It is just amazing. We have 131 churches that play our archives every other day. Churches play these archives. Talk about pressure. Really? Pressure? That's pressure. So I just stopped it after that because here's why, and then I got to go because I'm not getting emotional, but I don't know how anybody sees me. I only know the desire in me to do for the kingdom. I know that, but I really don't keep track of all that stuff out there. I don't know how people see me, right? So to find out, and I really just, it's really like, literally, I'm just finding this out. To find certain things out is it's just beyond things. It really is beyond things. Because we're so small, we're so tiny. We're tiny, but things are getting out there. But we're so tiny. And, well, not tiny in some aspects, but you guys know what I'm saying. I'm just, anybody could do this stuff behind here. So it's a blessing to be effective, because there's one thing I'm always worried about. There's something that worries me so much. Every single time I talk, even right now, even like yesterday, it bothers me. Every time I know it's going to bother me after this talk. And you know what it is? Did I mess the Lord's word up? Did I not convey something to the standard of the Lord that somebody would understand it? I have stayed up night after night thinking about things like that. Because you don't feel like you should ever say anything again. It's not like I trust what I'm saying. I'm passionate. I believe what I'm saying, right? But you don't know if something is effective or not. All that's in the Lord's hands. And it makes you nervous because you're handling something that is holy. And it's not a toy, right? So if that's why I will not, if my heart's not in the right place or something like that, you guys wouldn't hear me for months. I mean months. But I speak from a point of it's almost like being desperate. Because I desperately want people to find Christ in the Word. Not so much the Christ that's being presented by the world, but the real Christ. And he'll convey that if one would read his Word. But it's amazing things the Lord does. No one will ever know. They just, it's certain things you'll never know. You're not meant to know until it's done, and then you're known. This is you're not even to know if it's difficult or if it's easy. You're not to know those things. I can't really communicate them, but you're not to know that. Maybe that's why the Word goes forward without all the other stuff getting in the mix of it.